I'd like to introduce C.D. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Brother Jack, and to the organizers for the opportunity to be here. My flight was canceled last night, and they said to me, "Rev, you sure you still want to go in?" Because I had to fly in this morning. And I said, there's no other place where I'd rather be than to be with the Bluefords, because I appreciate their training, fight for justice. And we certainly appreciate the family of Oscar Grant as well, and all the victims and family of victims who are transforming their tragedies into triumph. We should give them a round of applause. I come from Baltimore, a city that is increasingly becoming the police brutality capital of this country. We've had 15 police-related murders in Baltimore City just in 2012 alone. One of the most heinous and most egregious murders was the murder of a man named Anthony Anderson. This gentleman was walking along a grassy path at the end of his block at the corner of Montford and Biddle in East Baltimore. I say that because it's a low to moderate income African American community. And the reason why that is important is because if we're going to tell the truth about it, the only people who are murdered by the police are poor people and African American men, if we're going to tell the truth about it. This is genocide and it's an annihilation. Having said that, Mr. Anderson was at the end of his block walking. He was en route to his mother's house to celebrate his 2-year-old granddaughter's birthday. His mother was there, his siblings were there, his children was there, and his 2-year-old grandchild was there. Knockers, these special police units, all of us are familiar with them. The knockers came up behind Mr. Anderson, unbeknown to him, without warning, without a halt, without a "sir, can we talk to you," or anything. Hoisted him up in the air and slammed him on his head, body slammed him. As a result of that, he began to shake profusely, and minutes later, he was dead. This happened in the presence of his 2-year-old grandchild on her birthday. And so every single time she closes her eyes, every single time she thinks of her birthday, she thinks of her grandfather being murdered on that same day. The police indicated that he was attempting to digest some drugs, some illegal substances. And that's what precipitated the initial encounter, as if that was some sort of justification for killing him. Yeah, because that's what they try to do to us. They try to say, if something is in your system, if you're doing something inappropriate, that gives them the free pass to in turn do something inappropriate. But nevertheless, as soon as we got the call, they said, "Rev, an incident happened at the corner of Montford and Biddle. A man was picked up in the air, hoisted in the air, slammed on his head, and was killed right there on the spot." When we did our research the next day in the Baltimore Sun newspaper, it said that a man was attempting to ingest drugs. And as a result of him swallowing the drugs, he choked on the drugs and died. So immediately we went to the neighborhood and did a community-based investigation, because those are the kinds of things that we need to do. We need to go knock on doors, talk to the people in the community, and we need to do the community-based work that is necessary. And we talked to the 6 family members who were there present at the time. We got affidavits from every single one of them. And we talked to 20 witnesses who were on the scene. And every single witness said the same exact thing. So immediately we conducted a press conference the next day. We told the Baltimore City Police Department that under no uncertain terms would we tolerate such a thing. We had an attorney. We drafted a complaint to the U.S. Justice Department. And we told them flat out that if we didn't get the autopsy report 48 hours, we were going to file a Freedom of Information request. And the autopsy report was back in 24. Yeah. And when the autopsy report came back and indicated there was no airway obstruction, that means that Mr. Anderson was not attempting to swallow anything. Not to mention the fact that Mr. Anderson's system was completely clean. I said all that to say that we as a community have the ability to not just advocate for justice, but we've got the ability to make the police a liar in front of the general public and change the story. That's why we got to get into the communities and do the community-based investigation. The reason why I'm happy today to be here is because we've got to be cognizant about a couple of things as it relates to police brutality. We've got to be cognizant about the fact that there are some racial implications to this thing. As I indicated, the only people who are killed are African-American men. All of the 15 people that were killed in Baltimore City in 2012 were African-American men. But there's also an issue in relationship to class, because we got to tell it the way that it is. In certain zip codes, they don't go through these type of changes. The same young people who are being killed by the police are being deprived of recreation centers. Their schools are being shut down. Their joblessness, there's no summer jobs, and they're being deprived of opportunity. So we've got a situation where our young people are being targeted by racism and classism, and we've got to stand up against it. We've also got to be cognizant of this particular thing, that not every officer that's pulling the trigger is a white officer. Because when we deal with issues in relationship to class, we're dealing with issues in relationship to systematic injustices. We're dealing with systematic racism. And we've got to address issues in relationship to the system in which we are addressing. So the officer could be a black officer or it could be a white officer. But we've got to address the issue with the same level of urgency, because an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. What's happening to our young people, the reason why I'm here as a preacher, is because what's happening to our young people is of a biblical proportions. The Bible speaks about how King Herod hunted young people under the age of 2. Our young people are being hunted in the streets like dogs, and we just got to tell the truth about it. We've got to say that for me and my house, as for my son, as for my daughter, you won't put your hands on it. And if you do, we will hold you accountable to the fullest extent of the law. We've got to start calling for murder charges. We've got to end the double standard in our community. Because if you commit a crime, you're going to jail, they will indict you, they will convict you, and it will happen immediately. But what happens is with the police, they wait until the hysteria is over in the community, and then they drop the charges. What we've got to do is to continue to maintain the momentum on this particular case. I told the Blueford family, we've got to fly back to Baltimore because we've got a school board hearing that we've got to prepare for on tomorrow. But we're going to be back in January, February, and we're going to beat the streets, we're going to knock on doors, we're going to motivate, we're going to galvanize people, because we understand that as long as the community is signed up, as long as the people are signed up, if we stop protesting, if we stop raising hell, if the groups like the NAACP and even the SCLC that I represent, if the civil rights community doesn't get any heart, if they don't get any fortitude to step up to the plate and tell the truth about it, nothing will change. You got to still do it. You got to do it. Every single stuff that has happened, which is why it's appropriate that this meeting has happened at this college. Young people have had a role to play. We cannot allow for our radical strength to be hidden. We can't allow for it to be hidden under a rock. We've got to be strong, and we've got to be of good courage. And we've got to tell the truth. We can't allow for politics to play a role in our decision making. We've got to be honest about this police brutality thing, because every single minute that we allow for this brutality to happen, and not only is it brutality, it's terrorism. We're not concerned about any terrorism outside this country. We're concerned about homegrown terrorists right here in this country. Right here in this country. Where we live. And so we've got to be about the business of ensuring that we patrol our own communities. We need community-controlled policing, and we need it now. But that's going to require us to make some sacrifices. We're going to have to get up off our ducks and protect our communities, because we know that we can't trust them to do what we should be
how we're going to build a national movement.